The night was unlike any night the people of Makkah had ever seen. In the quiet darkness, the stars suddenly shone brighter than they ever had before. Some said they saw a light rise from the house where Amina, the mother of the Prophet Muhammad FDFA, was giving birth. This light, they said, stretched so far into the sky that it lit up the palaces of Syria, a land many days away. At the same moment, something unbelievable happened: the Great Fire of Persia, a fire that had been burning for more than 1,000 years without ever going out, suddenly died. Across faraway lands, the tall towers of the Persian kings shook and cracked. And in the Kaaba, the idols that people worshipped besides Allah trembled and fell on their faces. While people were still confused and shocked, a calm and gentle baby entered the world, Muhammad, the final messenger who would change the fate of humanity forever. But what did all these miracles really mean, and why did they happen on the same night? What purpose would this child carry that made the whole world react? Before anyone could answer, an even stranger sign appeared. Now let us go back to where the story truly begins. Long before the miraculous night of his birth, Arabia was a land with both beauty and hardship. Huge deserts stretched endlessly, and the people lived in tribes that often fought one another. There were good people among them, but many had forgotten the teachings of Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail. Though they lived beside the Kaaba, which had been built for the worship of Allah alone, many people had filled it with idols made of stone and wood. Some believed the statues could protect them. Others followed traditions even when they did not make sense. But not everyone was lost. Among them was a kind and honest man named Abdullah, the father of Prophet Muhammad FDFA. Abdullah was known for his noble character. He was gentle, respectful, and always truthful. Many people admired him even before he married Amina, the woman chosen by Allah to carry a child who would be a mercy to the entire world. Amina herself was known for her purity and good manners. She did not speak harshly, and her heart was filled with peace. When she learned she was expecting a baby, something unusual happened. She did not feel the pain or sickness many women felt. Instead, she felt light, as if comfort surrounded her every moment. She even saw a dream that surprised her. In that dream, a voice said, "You carry the master of this nation, the leader of all people. When he is born, name him Mohammed, the praised one." Amina woke with her heart beating fast. She knew this child was not ordinary. She kept the dream in her heart, wondering what great plan Allah had prepared for her son. Time passed, and Amina noticed more gentle signs. Sometimes she felt as though a soft light was in her home, even when no lamp was lit. When she walked at night, she felt safe, as if unseen angels were guarding her. These were the quiet signs, the lows, the less extreme moments before the greater miracles that would soon shake the world. Meanwhile, outside her home, Arabia was changing. In the land of Persia, the powerful king known as Kisra had become worried because strange events had begun to happen. Small cracks appeared in his palace walls even before the night of the birth. His priests and fortune-tellers were uneasy. They spoke about a great power rising from the Arabs that would end their old ways. But Kisra did not believe them. He laughed at the idea that simple desert dwellers could ever affect his mighty kingdom. Back in Makkah, people continued their lives, not knowing that the most important moment in human history was approaching. Amina grew closer to the time of giving birth, and the people around her did not notice anything unusual. But inside her heart, she felt a calm certainty. She knew Allah was preparing a miracle. Days turned into weeks and nights passed quietly. And then, on a blessed night in the month of Rabi al-Awwal, everything changed. As the hour of birth approached, Amina felt neither fear nor difficulty. Instead, she felt surrounded by peace. Then, as she gave birth, she saw a light so bright that it reached far beyond the walls of her home. At the same moment, far away in Persia, the sacred fire that had burned for centuries suddenly fell silent. The priests panicked. They had never seen it go out. They rushed to relight it, but nothing worked. In another land, the mighty palace of Kisra shook so violently that 14 of its towers collapsed. The king woke in shock. "What is happening to my kingdom?" he shouted. He sent messengers to gather the wisest among them to explain the signs. Back in Makkah, the idols around the Kaaba shook and fell, as if they knew the arrival of a child who would one day break them and restore the house of Allah to its true purpose. The heavens seemed to open, and angels filled the skies in celebration. But the greatest miracle was the child himself. Muhammad FDFA was born clean, pure, and glowing with light. A sweet fragrance filled the room. He placed his tiny hands on the ground and lifted his head to the sky, as if declaring that his message would be for the whole world and that his guidance would come from Allah alone. Amina held him gently, her eyes filled with wonder. She knew her son had a mission to guide people from darkness to light, from worshipping idols to worshipping the one true God. His purpose was to teach kindness, mercy, justice, and truth. The world had changed that night. Every sign, every miracle, every strange event meant something big was coming. People would soon learn that this child was sent to reshape humanity and remind them of their Creator. As the people of Makkah slept unaware, something else happened, something so mysterious that even Amina did not fully understand it. Just as she settled down with her newborn baby, another surprising event occurred that no one could explain. Amina had barely rested her eyes when she felt a gentle presence in the room. The air became calm, almost sweet, and a soft glow spread across the space. She looked up, confused, wondering if the light she was seeing was just her imagination. But it was. Before her stood a group of men, no, not men, beings dressed in white, their faces shining like the morning sun. They were unlike anything she had seen in her life. They were angels. They had come not to bring fear but honor. One of them stepped forward with a smile filled with peace. He carefully lifted baby Mohammed in his hands and carried him outside the house. Amina, though startled, felt tranquility fill her heart. Something inside her whispered, "Do not fear, this is part of Allah's plan." What happened outside would become one of the greatest signs of Mohammed's special purpose in Islam. As the angel carried the baby into the night, the stars above seemed to draw nearer, twinkling brighter, almost bowing in respect. The scent of musk filled the air, and that gentle light, brighter than any lamp, surrounded the newborn. It was said that even the animals of the nearby valleys lifted their heads as if sensing a miracle, as if understanding that a mercy for all creatures had just been born. Then something incredible happened. The angel placed Mohammed FDFA on the ground and raised him up gently toward the sky. It was as if the baby was being introduced to the heavens and the earth. The angel said words that Amina could not hear clearly, but she felt their power like a message being carried through the wind. And then it ended as peacefully as it began. The angels placed the baby back in her arms, their light slowly fading. Soon they were gone, leaving Amina with wonder and the world with a miracle. She held Mohammed tightly, knowing without a doubt that this child was no ordinary child. His birth had brought miracles and his life would bring even more. But before we reach the great moment when all these miracles became known to the world, we must go back again to understand why Arabia and even lands far beyond were waiting for someone like Mohammed, even if they didn't know it yet. Long before his birth, Arabia had lost its way in many aspects. Though the people were brave and full of pride, they fought so often that even small arguments could turn into long-lasting wars. Entire tribes would go years without speaking because of one angry moment. Mercy was rare. The weak were often mistreated, and girls sometimes weren't given the love and value they deserved. People believed in many gods, stone idols, wooden statues, and even pieces of metal shaped into strange forms. These idols could not speak, help, or protect anyone, yet people trusted them more than they trusted Allah, the creator of everything. Still, not all hearts were lost. Among the Quraysh tribe lived noble people who tried to do good and stay honest. One of the most respected among them was Abd al-Muttalib, the grandfather of Prophet Muhammad FDFA. He was strong, wise, generous, and known to never break a promise. Many people sought his advice because he always listened carefully and judged fairly. Abd al-Muttalib loved his son Abdullah dearly. Abdullah had such purity and kindness that even strangers felt at ease around him. But Allah had chosen a different path for him, and sadly, Abdullah passed away before his son Muhammad was born. This made Amina's heart heavy, but Allah comforted her with the peace that surrounded her pregnancy. As people prepared for normal daily life in Makkah, strange whispers spread in other lands. In Persia, the king Kisra gathered his priests to ask about the strange events, the fire going out, the palace cracking, the strange dreams his advisors were having. One priest finally spoke carefully. "A great leader has been born among the Arabs. His message will end injustice and will reach far and wide." Kisra grew angry. He could not believe that a child born in the deserts could shake his mighty kingdom. But no matter how much he refused to accept it, the signs kept coming, each pointing to the arrival of someone world-changing. Meanwhile, Amina cared for newborn Mohammed with love and wonder. She noticed unusual things. For example, when she fed him, he never caused trouble or cried without reason. He seemed calm and peaceful, as if always aware of something greater around him. And there was always a soft light around him, nothing blinding but a gentle glow that made those near him feel warm inside. His birth attracted attention beyond humans. Some said they saw birds flying in circles high above the house. Others said the stars themselves appeared brighter. Nobody knew exactly what was happening, but many felt that something special had taken place. Days passed and Amina received many visitors. Some women from Makkah came to congratulate her. They admired the baby and said he had a beautiful smell, as if he had been touched by perfume. People started talking, softly at first, then more loudly, that Amina's child was not like others. But what gave people the greatest shock came a few days later. It was now time for the newborn to be taken to the Kaaba, as was the custom of the Quraysh. They would welcome the child, give thanks, and bless him. Amina wrapped Muhammad gently and handed him to Abd al-Muttalib, who carried him with pride. The moment Abd al-Muttalib brought the baby near the Kaaba, something unimaginable happened. The idols inside the Kaaba trembled again. Some tilted, others fell completely, just as they had on the night of his birth. People froze in fear. The Kaaba had been filled with idols for many years, and nothing like this had ever happened, not even during storms or earthquakes. But now, in the presence of this tiny newborn child, the idols shook once more, as if bowing before a future they could not escape. Abd al-Muttalib stood in awe. The people around him whispered to one another, voices trembling. Everyone felt it. This child was meant for something greater than anyone could imagine. The people watched with wide eyes. Something else, another strange and powerful event, began right at that moment, and no one could explain what they were seeing. The people standing around the Kaaba took a step back, their hearts beating fast. A quiet wind, soft at first, began to circle the sacred house. It was unusual because the air had been still only moments before. The cloth covering the Kaaba fluttered gently, then more strongly, even though the sky above was clear and calm. Everyone stared in fear and confusion, unsure whether to run or stay. Abd al-Muttalib held baby Muhammad tightly against his chest. His hands trembled, not from fear but from awe. He had lived a long life and witnessed many strange events, but nothing compared to this moment. He knew, deep in his heart, that his grandson was chosen for something that would change the world forever. The wind swirled faster, circling the Kaaba as if welcoming the child who would one day purify it. The idols shook violently. One large idol made of stone cracked straight down the middle. Another fell from its spot and shattered into pieces on the floor. The crowd gasped so loudly that their voices echoed through the courtyard. Then suddenly, everything became still again. The wind stopped. The cloth of the Kaaba fell into silence. The fallen idols lay broken on the ground. Mothers clutched their children. Men whispered prayers under their breath. It was as if the world had paused just for a few seconds, waiting for something more. But nothing else happened. The silence after the shock felt heavy, as though everyone needed time to understand what they had just seen. One of the elders stepped forward and asked in a trembling voice, "What child is this, Abd al-Muttalib?" With his eyes still fixed on the Kaaba, Abd al-Muttalib replied softly, "This child is special. Allah has protected him since the moment he opened his eyes." The crowd stared at the newborn, trying to understand the meaning behind these signs. Some looked afraid. Others looked amazed. A few even turned away from the idols they once worshipped, realizing that stone could not stand firm in front of this tiny baby. Abd al-Muttalib whispered a prayer and kissed Muhammad's forehead. In his heart, he felt both joy and responsibility. He wondered what destiny awaited this child, what message he would bring, what challenges he would face, and what events would unfold in the years to come. He carried Muhammad back to Amina. When she saw them returning, she felt a strange mix of relief and worry. She could see the look on Abd al-Muttalib's face, the seriousness in his eyes. "What happened?" she asked gently. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he placed the sleeping baby beside her and sat down slowly. "Amina," he finally said, "your son, the world has already begun to react to his presence. Today, inside the Kaaba, the idols shook again and some of them fell." Amina drew in a sharp breath. She already knew her child was special, but these signs confirmed everything she had felt inside her heart. She placed her hand over Muhammad's small chest and whispered, "May Allah protect you always." Life slowly returned to normal in Makkah, although nothing truly felt normal anymore. Word of the strange events spread across the city. People talked in markets, in homes, in gatherings, trying to explain what had happened. Some believed it was a warning, others said it was a blessing. but no one could deny that a powerful sign had taken place. Days turned into weeks and the baby grew stronger. Amina loved him deeply and so did Abd al-Muttalib. Whenever the grandfather looked at Muhammad, he felt a warmth in his heart. He would hold him often and say, "This child will lead people to goodness, I feel it." But life was not all miracles and wonders. Hardship still existed as it always had. One of these hardships was that Arabia suffered from a shortage of clean air in the city. Many families sent their newborns to live with nursing mothers in the countryside. They believed the desert air made children stronger and healthier. The desert women would visit Mecca searching for babies to nurse in exchange for payment or gifts. Among those women was Halima from the tribe of Banu Sa'd. She was gentle and kind, but her family was poor. Their camels were weak, their donkey walked slowly, and their daily life was a struggle. She prayed constantly for relief. When Halima and the other women reached Mecca, they began searching for babies to nurse. But each family chose other women, not Halima. They saw her weak animals and believed her family had little blessing. Halima watched sadly as baby after baby was taken by someone else. Soon, she was the only woman left without a child. Her husband said kindly, "Let us not return empty-handed. Even if the child is not from a rich family, Allah may place goodness in him." Halima agreed. She didn't want to return home with nothing, so she went to visit Amina. When she saw Muhammad, her heart softened immediately. The baby smiled at her, a warm, gentle smile that filled her chest with peace. Something inside her whispered, "Take him, he will bring blessing." Amina looked at Halima with hopeful eyes. She said, "I cannot offer you much, his father has passed away." But Halima replied, "It is not about payment, I feel something special about this child." She lifted Muhammad gently, and the moment she held him, a strange thing happened. Her weak donkey, the one that had slowed them down all the way from the desert, suddenly stood tall and strong. It brayed loudly and began walking faster than any donkey in her group had ever walked. Her husband stared in shock. "Halima, something is happening." But that was only the beginning of the blessings Muhammad brought to Halima's household. When they arrived home, her old goats suddenly produced milk again after months of dryness. Her animals began gaining strength. Everyone in her village noticed the change. They asked her, "Did you bring a rich child?" She shook her head and said, "No, I brought an orphan." The more days passed, the more Halima realized that the child she carried was no ordinary boy. He brought light, peace, and blessing wherever he went. Still, life was not without mystery. One sunny afternoon, while the children were playing outside, something sudden and frightening happened, a moment that would become one of the earliest and strangest events in Muhammad's childhood. Halima heard the children screaming from the fields, yelling for help. She ran as fast as her feet could carry her. When she reached them, her heart froze. Something extraordinary, something shocking, had just happened to young Muhammad. Halima's heart pounded as she ran toward the children. Their voices were shrill with fear, echoing across the open fields. Dust rose behind her as her feet struck the ground. She had never heard the children cry out like this before. Something serious had happened, something unusual. When she reached them, she found the children standing in a circle, their faces pale, their hands shaking. Some were crying, others were too shocked to speak. They pointed toward the ground, toward where young Muhammad was sitting quietly, his face calm but his clothes slightly disturbed. Halima dropped to her knees beside him. "Muhammad, my dear child, what happened? Are you hurt?" She held him gently, checking his arms, his chest, his face. She expected to see wounds or bruises, but he looked unharmed. Before she could ask again, one of the boys finally found his voice. With trembling lips he said, two men in white, they came down from the sky. They laid him down and they opened his chest." Another child cried out, we saw it with our own eyes." Halima felt her breath catch, her eyes widened with panic, opened his chest. "What are you saying?" The boy nodded rapidly, tears running down his cheeks. They opened his chest and took something out, something black, then they washed his heart with a bowl of shining water and put it back. Halima looked back at Muhammad. His eyes were calm, too calm for a child who had just gone through such a strange event. He looked up at her and said softly, "Mama Halima, don't be afraid, they were angels." Her breath froze. "Angels?" She had thought the children imagined things, but Mohammed spoke with a certainty far beyond his young age. She checked his chest again, her hands shaking, expecting to see injury or pain, but instead she found a faint, soft line, not a wound, not bleeding, just a thin mark almost glowing under the sunlight as if the skin had healed instantly. Halima sat back, stunned. Her husband arrived moments later, breathless and terrified, sweating from running. When he saw Mohammed sitting peacefully, he fell to his knees in relief. What happened? What did they do to him? The children all spoke at once, their voices overlapping. They came from the sky, they were shining, they opened his chest, they washed his heart with light. Each child described the same thing. None contradicted the other. They couldn't all be imagining the same story. Something truly miraculous had occurred. Halima's husband placed a hand on her shoulder. "Halima," he whispered, "this child, he was not sent to us by accident." That night Halima could not sleep. She kept watching Mohammed as he slept peacefully, his chest rising and falling gently. She whispered to her husband, "We must protect him, but I fear something too great for us is happening. What if harm comes to him? What if someone tries to take him?" Her husband nodded. "I agree, maybe he should return to his mother. She may be the one chosen to witness the rest of his signs." The next morning, Halima and her husband made the decision to take Mohammed back to Mecca earlier than planned. Their hearts were heavy, for they had come to love him deeply, but they believed it was for his safety. When they reached Mecca, Amina welcomed them warmly. She reached out to hold her son, kissing his forehead with relief and love. But when she saw the serious look on Halima's face, she knew something had happened. "Tell me," Amina said quietly, "tell me everything." Halima sat before her and began to recount the event: the two men in white, the opening of the chest, the washing of the heart, the terrified children. She expected Amina to cry or panic, but instead Amina's expression softened into something peaceful, almost knowing. She whispered, "I am not surprised. I knew from the day he was born that he would be protected." Halima stared, shocked by Amina's calmness. Amina continued gently, "When I carried him in my womb, I never felt fear or pain, only peace. I saw a dream before he was born, a light shining from me and reaching the palaces of Syria, and a voice telling me that this child would be the leader of this nation." Tears welled in Halima's eyes. "Then he is safe with you, Allah is watching over him." Amina nodded, "Always." Halima hugged Mohammed tightly for the last time. It was a long, emotional embrace. She whispered, "You brought blessings to my home, to every breath we took. May Allah protect you, my dear child." Mohammed hugged her back, a small smile on his face. "Mama Halima, thank you." With a heart full of both pride and sadness, Halima left him in Amina's care and returned to her tribe. Mohammed grew under the watchful eye of his mother and grandfather. He grew strong, kind, and gentle. He never complained, never spoke harshly, and never caused trouble. Even as a young boy, people felt calm when he was near. It was as though the world itself respected him. But even though the days were peaceful, life still had its hardships. Tragedy was approaching, one that would change Mohammed's life forever. Amina decided to travel to Yathrib, later known as Medina, the city where her husband Abdullah had been buried. She wanted Mohammed to know the place his father had lived and died. She took her small son and her loyal servant Baraka, whom Mohammed lovingly called Ayman. The journey to Yathrib was long but calm. The people of the city welcomed them warmly. They stayed for a month, visiting family and remembering Abdullah. But on their way back to Mecca, something unexpected and deeply heartbreaking began to happen. Amina grew pale, her steps slowed, her breathing became heavy. She fell ill in the heat of the desert. Mohammed watched helplessly as his mother weakened day by day. He held her hand, his young eyes filled with worry. And then, on a quiet afternoon in a small village called Abwa, tragedy struck. Amina collapsed. Ayman rushed to her side. "Amina, Amina, stay with us." Mohammed knelt beside his mother, tears filling his eyes. "Mama, Mama, what's wrong?" Amina looked at her son, her eyes soft with love and sorrow. "My son, my dear Mohammed," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ayman saw it happening. She saw the color draining from Amina's face. She saw her breathing slow. "No, no, Amina, not now," she cried. But it was too late. Amina's eyes closed. She took her last breath. And Mohammed, still only 6 years old, found himself holding his mother's lifeless hand. The desert was silent. The world around him felt suddenly heavier. A child who had been born with miracles had just lost the person he loved most. But the tragedy was not over yet. Something else, something even more difficult, awaited him. The desert wind blew softly across the lonely village of Abwa as little Mohammed sat beside his mother's grave. He did not understand why Allah had taken her so soon. But he felt the heavy silence of loss settling around him. His small hands trembled as he touched the sand covering the place where Amina now rested. He was only 6 years old, too young to lose so much. First his father before he was even born, and now his mother. Amin, the loyal servant who loved Mohammed like her own son, placed her hands gently on his shoulders. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Ya Mohammed, Allah is with you, you are never alone." He didn't respond. His eyes remained on the grave, filled with sadness deeper than his age. Even then, something about him remained calm, patient, as if Allah himself was giving him strength from within. When they finally rose to return to Mecca, the long journey felt even longer. Every step felt heavy, and every mile reminded Mohammed of the empty space where his mother's comforting voice once lived. But he walked quietly, never complaining, never blaming. His heart, though hurting, remained soft. When they reached Mecca, Abd al-Muttalib saw his grandson and immediately knew what had happened. The moment he saw the sadness in Mohammed's eyes, his own heart broke. He rushed forward, scooping the boy into his arms with trembling hands. "My son, my dear grandson," he whispered, his voice cracking with pain. "I am here, you are safe." He held Mohammed as if he were the most precious thing on earth. In truth, to him he was. From that day forward, Abd al-Muttalib loved Mohammed more than anything. He took him wherever he went, whether to important meetings, rituals at the Kaaba, or gatherings with leaders. People noticed how the old chief walked proudly with the young boy beside him, never letting him out of sight. At night, when he rested on his special carpet near the Kaaba, no one was allowed to sit there, even great leaders were forbidden. But when Mohammed approached, the elders would smile and say, "Let him sit, he is allowed." And Abd al-Muttalib would pat the place beside him and say, "Come, my child, sit with me." Everyone could feel something unique about the boy. His presence brought peace. His smile softened even the angriest hearts. But life was not done testing him. Even though Mohammed found love and protection with his grandfather, he still carried the sadness of losing both parents. Often he would watch families in the markets, children laughing with their mothers, boys riding on their father's shoulders, and a quiet shadow would pass across his face. But he never complained. Instead, he grew more gentle, more grateful, and more patient. One day, when Abd al-Muttalib was resting, he watched Mohammed playing quietly with other children. Suddenly, he saw the boy stop to help a little child who had fallen, even though the others simply laughed and ran. The old man smiled proudly. He is different, he thought, he carries mercy in his heart. But soon, another heartbreak was waiting. Abd al-Muttalib grew older and weaker. His once strong hands now trembled and his steps became slow. Mohammed, now 8 years old, stayed close to him, helping him walk, sitting beside him when he rested, and bringing him water. The bond between them was deep, grandfather and grandson, but also something more, something chosen by Allah. One night, Abd al-Muttalib called Mohammed close. He placed a shaking hand on the boy's head and whispered, "My son, my time is coming, but do not fear. Allah will protect you, he will always protect you." Mohammed felt a cold ache in his chest. "Grandfather, please don't leave me too." Abd al-Muttalib's eyes filled with tears. He pulled Mohammed into a tight embrace. "You are not alone, you will never be alone." A few days later, surrounded by the Quraysh elders, Abd al-Muttalib breathed his last. Just like that, Mohammed lost another pillar of love. Amin held him as he cried softly, not with loud screams or anger, but with the quiet sorrow of someone who understood loss deeply, even at a young age. The people of Mecca mourned. They respected Abd al-Muttalib, but many of them also felt sorrow because they had seen the love between him and the young boy. After the burial, the Quraysh gathered to decide who would care for Mohammed next. Everyone knew he needed someone special, someone who would love him like his own. And so, the responsibility fell to Abu Talib, the brother of Mohammed's late father. Abu Talib was kind-hearted, humble, and gentle. Though not wealthy, he had a warm home and a deep love for family. When he met Muhammad again, he pulled the boy close and said, "You will live with me now. My home is your home. My children are your brothers. You will never be left alone." From that moment on, Muhammad lived in the home of Abu Talib. Though they did not have much, there was warmth, laughter, and love in that household. Abu Talib's wife, Fatima bint Asad, welcomed Muhammad like her own son. She fed him first before her own children, clothed him, and comforted him when sadness touched his heart. The years that followed shaped Muhammad's character. He grew honest, hardworking, and generous. People trusted him even as a child. When he spoke truth. When he promised, he fulfilled it. When he worked with sincerity. It was during this time that Muhammad began to understand the struggles of life, poverty, hard work, danger, and survival. These experiences would prepare him for something far greater, guiding people, caring for the poor, and standing for justice. But even though life had become peaceful again, with warm meals and family love, a great and dangerous event was quietly approaching. One night, while Abu Talib was preparing for a journey with his caravan, Muhammad walked up to him and said something that made the older man stop completely in his tracks. "Uncle," he said softly, "I want to go with you." Abu Talib stared at him with surprise. "You are still so young. The desert is dangerous, the journey is long." Muhammad looked up with steady eyes far wiser than his age. "Please, uncle, let me come." Abu Talib hesitated. He felt a strange fear inside, as if letting the child join this journey might change everything. But in the end, he could not refuse him. He sighed and nodded. "Very well, you will come with me." What Abu Talib did not know was that this journey, this simple decision, would lead to an event so surprising, so extraordinary that even the desert travelers would speak of it for years to come. An event involving a monk, a prophecy, and a sign that confirmed Muhammad's destiny. And on the very first day of the journey, something unexpected happened on the hot desert road.